When I woke up this morning, I found the house to be empty. It's strange. I seriously doubt that my family would leave me for my aunt's house without me on Christmas morning. Something wasn't right. All the meticulously placed pictures of me that were on the walls and hearth were gone. All other photos were still in place. Another thing that struck me as odd was the fact that there were no gifts that, just last night, were meticulously put under the tree this morning. What the hell? I thought to myself. Everything is gone, even the stuff I left for my parents. Just then I heard a low, guttural growl that practically made me jump out of my skin. I quickly turned my head to see my dog, baring her teeth. In a semi-defensive position, she stared at me, with a terrified look in her eyes, as she growled. I took a step towards her, and she ran into the other room as fast as she could. Shit, I muttered to myself. Something definitely is not right. I walked through the house and everything was a mess. Tables and chairs were turned over, and lamps were smashed. It looked as if a tornado went through the place. I felt like shit. I guess a good analogy would be I felt as the house looked. I felt as if a cement truck had just punched me in the gut. I went upstairs to go to the bathroom and wash myself up. The smell of cigarette smoke and cheap booze filled the air. I wondered what was going on. In the bathroom, I looked in the mirror, and I must say I looked like a picture of the living dead. I was white as sour cream, and my pupils were dilated to a size I never knew was natural. It was almost as if my eyes themselves were black. Quite disconcerted, I walked through the house at a slow pace, taking my time. I noticed that my father's black suit and tie were missing. That shouldn't be anything disturbing to me, as normally it isn't. But for some reason, I couldn't shake the bad feeling that was coming from deep within my gut. I walked down the stairs. I looked through the window and noticed that my dad's black Cadillac Converge was missing from the driveway. So was my mom's Chrysler 300C. I was pissed that they just left me alone like this. Whatever, it's only 3 miles to my aunt's house. I put on my jacket. I walked out the door quietly, being careful not to scare my dog more than she already was. It was a cold day, which was to be expected on a late December day in Capitol Hill, Boston, Massachusetts. There was a mass of people congregated around the junction around 3 blocks away from my house. I couldn't make out any details, but I could see the outline of a black car. It had hit the side of a two-family. The front half of the car was inside the damn living room. I had a natural aversion to things like that, so, despite being worried about the driver and potential passengers, I kept moving. Nothing else seemed out of the ordinary on my walk, just your typical Bostonian good morning, which is a bump in the shoulder in any of the several established cusses. I arrived at my aunt's house about 2 hours after setting off, and yes, I took my sweet time. Looking in the window, I could see several family members, nuclear family included, huddled around the table. I was mad as hell, but then I took a good hard look at everyone inside. All of them had a somber look on their faces for such a joyous holiday. Each person had a black suit or dress on. By then my anger had faded, and I quietly walked through the door as opposed to bursting through it, which is what I wanted to do in the first place. As soon as my foot crossed the threshold, a bright light enveloped me. I felt like I was drowning in light, and then everything went dark. When I came to, I walked out of my room, and there was still nothing under the tree. Both cars were still gone. I was more confused than when I woke up this morning. There's no way that my parents would have brought me back here and leave me here to go back to my aunt's house. I decided to go back. Once again, I put my jacket on and left the house. I remembered that about 3 blocks away there was an accident, and I figured I wouldn't be a pussy this time, and I checked it out. The crowd was gone, and there were only 2 squad cars. One was on the corner, and the other was right next to the crashed car. I walked right up to the car and was disturbed by the fact that the cop, eating a donut and reading the Boston Globe, did not notice any of my presence, despite the fact that I walked right by them. I dreaded looking inside the car, and I hesitated for a few minutes. I wasn't going to let myself just walk away, even though I felt like I was going to throw up. I bent over and was horrified to see a bloody thing that looked just like me pinned into a seat by the dashboard. Blood continued to roll down his forehead. His hands, still clutching the steering wheel, were white-knuckled, and a look of horror was still spread across his face. Rigor mortis is a beautiful thing. In the distance I saw an ambulance, cruising towards the car with lights flashing and the speakers occasionally letting out a beep or two. In a state of disbelief, I rushed around to the back of the car, only to be greeted by the Cadillac insignia. I rushed to the squad car and started yelling at the cop, hoping to get a response. None came. I ran to a nearby driveway and picked up pebbles and started throwing them at the cop's window. He suddenly sat up alert, and he turned his head into my direction. With a quizzical look on his face, he turned his head away as if he didn't even see me, and went back to his donuts and the morning paper. I ran as fast as I could, but I only got a few feet away when I tripped on something. As I hit the ground and lay there, a bright white light, exactly like the one from before, came over me again. In an instant, it all came back to me in a flash. Pulling out of the driveway, running through the red light, worried that I would be late, getting T-boned by that goddamn Kia, and shielding my face with my hands from the shattered glass, trying desperately to gain control of the car again, going through the wall of the two family, being pinned to my seat by the dashboard, and finally choking on my own blood as it welled up in my lungs. When I woke up this afternoon, I found the house to be empty. It's strange. I seriously thought my family would leave me to sleep while they went to my aunt's house on Christmas Day. Nothing was out of the place, except all the miscellaneously placed pictures of me were off the walls and hearth were gone. All of the photos were still in place, though. Another thing that struck me as odd was the fact that there were no gifts that, just last night, were meticulously put under the tree.